And joining us right now on the HRP guest line from golongtd.com, a fantastic spot for NFL long-form features, the one and only Tyler Dunn, who we've had on this show before to talk about Stefan Diggs and his time in Buffalo. Tyler, very familiar with him there. Tyler, what's going on, man? Thanks for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks so much, man. Yeah, it's kind of perfect timing to spend last week with the Texans, get a feel for that squad, and then I'm staring out at Highmark Stadium right now here in Orchard Park, New York. So two teams that made two very bold decisions here when it comes to Stefan Diggs.
100%. The article that you wrote, the headline reads, Rat Poison, Smiles, Bullets Dodged, Why This Texans Hype Feels Real. Are you surprised by the seeming consensus? I feel like 99% to 100% of NFL analysts this offseason are really buying hook, line, and sinker into what the Texans are putting together. And it's understandable with C.J. Stroud and DeMeco Ryans and all the big names that they added this offseason. But it's been a while since I feel like a team that only made it to the second round of the playoffs the year before has been really getting universal praise going into the following season.
Yeah, I'm not surprised because I think that this is what we all do, right? In the midst of a dynasty, and the dynasty now is the Kansas City Chiefs, Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes. I mean, it's crazy that Patrick Mahomes' floor is D4 jumping off sides in the AFC Championship game, right? And then blowing a 3-score lead against the Bengals in the AFC Championship game. So I think it's just human nature for fans, for media, for everybody to kind of get a little sick of teams like that. It was the same thing with the Patriots. And so we all kind of gravitate toward the challenger. Like, who is that team that's going to give the Chiefs, give the dynasty their best punch? And it was Josh Allen and the Bills for a bit there. Maybe it still is. Joe Burrow and the Bengals, they did do it once. But I think that the Texans are just fun as hell. I mean, you've got the clearest path to building a contender is exactly what the Texans have done. You have the rookie contract at quarterback, yes, but that rookie quarterback is damn good. He's already a top 5 quarterback. So you might as well go out there and spend money like they've been spending money. Danielle Hunter, Stefan Diggs, everybody, Danico Autry. It makes so much sense to go all in. So I think that's it. And also, supply never meets demand in pro football. You've got time to fill. I've got stories to write. For the next month and a half, there ain't going to be much that happens, but the demand's there, so it's going to lead people to those glorious Houston Texans being Super Bowl contenders in 2024.
Yeah, besides just what the Texans did this offseason, like you mentioned, all the money they spent, the success they had last year, how much of it do you think is also, more of a reflection, maybe specifically about Baltimore, who continues to fall up short, because they dominated the Texans in the playoffs last year, but then they fell short against Kansas City. How much does those teams' shortcomings you think affect the hype around the Texans?
That's a great point. Totally agree. I think that we've seen it. We've seen the Ravens in that moment against the Chiefs in the playoffs, and it's not enough. Lamar Jackson, hell, you give him every penny that he wants, and he's a 2-time MVP for a reason. He's spectacular. Maybe he does kick that door down and win a Super Bowl at some point. But right now, his game, it has a ceiling. We've seen it. And when he's forced to stay in the pocket, pick you apart from the pocket, he isn't consistent. And that's what the Chiefs were able to do. So, yeah, even though the Ravens blasted the Texans in that second half, there's going to be more hype around the Texans, I think, because of the quarterback. Because we've seen C.J. Stroud work with Bobby Sloak, and it's only been 1 year. But, man, they just have answers all over that field. We probably talked about it at some point. As early as mid-October, I was chatting with a source high up with the Carolina Panthers, and he was looking at that Texans offense with such envy. Like, oh, my God, why can't we have coaching like that for Bryce Young, where before the snap and then post-snap, there's just answers for every square inch of the field. It isn't just call a play, run the play, If it works out, great. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Give C.J. Stroud all the credit in the world. I mean, he came out of the womb throwing a football. It's just such a beautiful throwing motion, and he's really great in his own right. But I think that Bobby Sloak deserves so much credit for really testing the individual responsibilities of all 11 defensive players. Robert Woods broke it down last year where if that outside linebacker, if his hook zone is X amount of yards, you're going to test that. You're going to see if he'll take it another 2 yards. And there's not a lot of coaches doing that kind of stuff schematically around the NFL.
Tyler Dunn of GoLongTD.com with us right now, the HRNP guest line. I'm Paul Gallant. He is Joe George. Tyler, last we spoke with you, I think there were still some questions about how Stefan Diggs, who Bobby Slokes is going to be working with this coming season, ultimately ended up becoming a Houston Texan. He finally met with the media. Diggs did last week. In his availability, I felt like he said all the right things. Seems like he is in a better place. But I was a little disappointed, as was a Houston Texans beat reporter, a little disappointed in no one asking, wait, so did you ask out of Buffalo? Did you figure out how things ended up the way that they did? Did Diggs ask for a trade? Did he ask for specific destinations? And I know in this article, Brandon Beane, the general manager of the Bills, danced around that. But I'm curious about how this run that he had in Buffalo finally hit the point where it was donezo, and if we've learned anything more since last we spoke.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is where I have to drop a tease, a cliffhanger. I sat down with Brandon Beane for an hour yesterday, and Stefan Diggs was a topic of discussion. So we'll have more there, but
nice.
I've been reporting that go along. Multiple sources, teammates have stressed to me that Diggs was done with the head coach. That he did not enjoy playing for Sean McDermott. I mean, it's not a shock. This time last year, there was all of the drama in minicamp here in Buffalo, and McDermott was quote unquote very concerned about Diggs, and he was there, but he left, and then he came back, and nothing to see here. Well, there was something to see there. There's a disconnect with the head coach. Maybe there's some stuff with the quarterback. He's liking certain tweets, criticizing Allen here and there, but I think it was genuine when Stefan Diggs kind of had Josh Allen's back publicly at that press conference. Yeah, I just think there's a schism of the head coach, and I do believe he wanted out, and he asked for a trade. But I also do think that the Bills could have been like, hey, Steph, great, you want out, but you're under contract. We just gave you a 4-year, $96 million extension. You've got 2 years left. You've got to play under that contract. I'm sorry, 3 years left. You've got to play under that contract. They made the conscious decision to move on as well, and I think that they were in a position of quote-unquote transition and wanting new leaders to emerge, and maybe he didn't necessarily fit into all of that. And I'm sure that the playoff performance factors in as well. In these playoff losses, Diggs hasn't been what he was in the regular season. So it is all the above. To answer your question, though, yeah, he wanted out of Buffalo, and Buffalo was happy to oblige that request.
Now that he's here, and it's going through your article, you talk about Nico Collins, and you talk about Tank Dell, and you have Diggs. This wide receiver room by Pro Football Focus, it said it's the number 1 or number 2 wide receiver trio in the NFL. But now that you see a little bit more behind the scenes about Diggs and how this team is working together, do you think that this has a chance to be one of the best wide receiver groups in the NFL, if not the best, in 2024?
Without question. I don't really know which receiving core rivals what Houston has. And I'm probably higher on Nico Collins than most. I mean, you look at the best wide receivers in the NFL statistically, nobody is 6'4", decisive in and out, cuts out of breaks. I mean, he plays like he's 5'10", 5'11", and 6'4". I mean, that's a dangerous receiver. And for him to actually stay healthy for a stretch, he went through all the groin problems, opened up on it when we caught up last October. You saw it. I mean, this is a legit alpha number 1 receiver that you've got a game plan around. And then you sprinkle in Tank Dell, who had, close to 800 yards in 11 games. He was on his way to having a similar season. And Stefan Diggs, if he's a third option, playing in the slot, you're going to have advantageous matchups all game. Now, he's got to be okay with that role, and he made it clear in so many words that he knows what he's walking into here, that there are a lot of mouths to feed. If he's okay with that, I don't think you really have it. Where do you even start as a defense? Well, where do you even start to defend all of these weapons? Joe Mixon mixed in there, Dalton Schultz, Brevin Jordan. There's a lot to account for. It's the best in the NFL. I mean, I'm not just pandering. I really believe that. And you've got the quarterback, you've got the trigger man that you believe in. I don't know how you defend the Texans, especially with the coaching. It's going to be really tough for anybody that faces this team.
We all love hearing that. And we've been making jokes all off season that every little bit of hype that we get is a bit of a deep steel blue pill, whether it's because we're living in dreamland or because, I don't know, it's getting us going. But if we're looking for some sort of red pill, Tyler, you did bring up an interesting comparison as far as preseason hype and things not working out so much, going back to the 2019 Browns, who had Baker Mayfield, who had a lot of good players on defense, who traded for Odell Beckham Jr., but obviously that season blew up in the Browns' face. Now, Freddie Kitchens, on the outside looking in, seemed like a bit of a disastrous choice as head coach of the Browns. They're known for doing that. But my question to you is, with everybody so excited about this team looking on the outside in at this Texans team, what would it take for them to turn into something like the disappointing 2019 Browns?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, because I remember spending time around those Browns and taking that hook, line, and sinker. I mean, to get drunk on the Cleveland Browns, all of that talent. I mean, a second-year quarterback in Baker Mayfield, similar to C.J. Stroud, where you saw a lot of hope the year before, and you add a receiver. In that case, Odell Beckham. In this case, Stefan Diggs. You've got studs on defense. Myles Garrett over there, Danielle Hunter here. There is a huge difference, though, and you just hit on it. Freddie Kitchens, DeMeco Ryans, night and day. I mean, Freddie Kitchens was in over his head. I think he was really well-intentioned, and he tried to do a lot of the right things. You know, he brings in Ryan Holiday, the renowned modern philosopher. I mean, he's written a ton of books. They're all must-reads. It was great talking to him about it. He speaks to the entire team, and it seems to have this big effect. But you can do things like that, but players are going to be who they've always been. You've got to sign and draft players who, you know, they're ready to face that adversity. When you get punched in the mouth like they did against the Tennessee Titans in Week 1, how do they respond? They didn't have the right players to kind of handle that moment, and they sure as hell didn't have the right coach to handle that kind of moment. I think the fact that DeMeco Ryans, he played, he's been in the market, he's a Houston Texan through and through, but he also went to San Francisco. He's been in winning programs. There isn't another guy that was, you know, born to be a head coach quite like him at that time. He became the head coach. I can't see it going off the rails in Houston. I can't see them going 6-10, 6-11 in this case, and everything just falling apart, even with injuries. I mean, they had the most players on IR last year, 19?
Yeah. And
you still win 10 games. If Stroud's healthy and if the weapons stay relatively healthy, they can deal with injuries, and this is going to be a team ready to make their...
Tyler,
right. You go for it on a rookie contract.
We really appreciate all of this. We're all really uncomfortable with how many good things are being said about the team, just given their history. We all are. I know our audience in particular, they are very, very skeptical, even after what we all saw last year. But we like further confirmation of all of this hype. Hopefully, it all comes to fruition. And everyone should check out Tyler's work, the golongtd.com. It's a great Substack. You guys do all sorts of cool stuff, whether it's scouting reports or these great long-form pieces that you do, Tyler. Really appreciate you joining us, and everybody who wants to know more about Stefan Diggs, I'm sure stay tuned for the next article there. Tyler, thanks, man. We'll do it again soon.
Anytime, Paul. Hey, thanks so much, guys.
That is Tyler Dunn. Again, golongtd.com.